Eric. So today we're going to talk about the stigma of the MLS, okay? And like we mentioned earlier, right in the beginning of today's session, Eric really got frustrated last week. So it's perfect when you got a situation that's actually, he's in the thick of it. I was like, bam, we got to talk about this. So Eric, explain what's happening. And I have a deal analyzer ready to go, show everybody when it's time, but explain what's happening, and then you can pull up the property as well when you're ready on the MLS or on the Zillow.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a referral that I got from a EXP agent last week. It was an investment property. He kind of told me like, hey, it's going to need some work. They're looking for somebody who's going to be able to help them. And like, you reached out to the right person. We'll definitely set up a meeting. So I started talking to the seller beginning of last week, and they were looking for a certain number. He kind of told me what was going on with the property. I said, I definitely think we'll be able to make that happen. You might even be able to get more. We'll kind of talk about it after we walk it. So when we're going into something like that, where we know the property is going to need work and we know that the situation is probably going to require some quick movement on it, then we're probably thinking from that point forward, what can we do to get this property moving as quickly as possible and for as much as possible? So immediately, like realtor brain turned on, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to have to do probably MLS, try and get the most attention we can, express offers with EXP, and I'll post it and send it out to a bunch of investors. I knew it needed some work. There's a property in St. Pete. So I didn't know what the condition of the property was going to be in. All I knew is it was a pool home in St. Pete, sub 400, which is a really good price point, and it was on a triple lot. So it had two other lots with it attached to the parcel. So I went to the property, pulled it to the outside. It needed some curb appeal, but it looked fine. And then we walked the inside, and it was honestly in really good condition. So sat down with the sellers, talked about kind of what they were looking for price wise, what they needed to net, what they were looking to get out of it. And we came up with a number. And in my head, when I ran comps, I thought, okay, this home is probably going to be listed. Like ARV on it was going to be 480 to 500. I felt pretty confident about that. Just the comps I pulled up, I thought it's a pool home, triple lot, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet, has a lanai, and it's in a good part, like North St. Pete, where a lot of people are looking to purchase. So immediately I kind of knew what their takeaway was going to be, and there was quite a big spread. So I was like, you know what, before I even do it, I wanted to kind of calm them down. I know that the sellers had a lot going on, and they were wanting to basically have kind of that assurance, like this is going to sell, we're not going to have to worry about it. So we sat down, we discussed with them, we're going to send it to investors, we're going to put it on the MLS, and we'll do the express offers all at the same time. And from there, we'll be able to kind of pick and choose. We're going to price it super aggressively though. So last week, that was on Wednesday, I started sending it out to investors. I had photos from a camera that we took just on the phone. I had the address, I had the comps, I had all the information. Super solid property. Sent it out to, I'd probably say like 5 or 6 investors that we work with, and then sent it out to a couple wholesalers as well. So I'm not against sending it out and saying, hey, if you've got a buyer for it, this is the seller's takeaway. If you can make something in between, feel free to. But if you can bring me an offer, that's ideal. Here's the terms they're looking for. Every person I called, every investor and every wholesaler was just like, yeah, definitely have interest in the deal. St. Pete, it's a pool home. North St. Pete, couldn't be better. Price is good. I said, perfect. Try and get me an offer by tomorrow, because Friday, this was Wednesday. I said, Friday, we're listing on the MLS. Immediately, as soon as I said that, every investor was like, oh, if it's going on the MLS, never mind. I have no interest in it. And I was like, well, wait, if you send me an offer before we hit the MLS, we can maybe agree to something. They're just wanting to kind of get that reassurance. But if you send an offer and it's like, hey, this works out, let's do it. And every investor I talk to is like, if this is planning on going on the MLS, we have no intentions to even run the numbers. So me and Randy had the meeting on, we typically meet on Wednesdays or Thursdays. I talked to him like, dude, I've had this happen so many times with my investors, where an investor doesn't want to look at a property because it's listed on the MLS or it's going on the MLS. There's just a stigma with it. And I think the stigma that goes along with it is everybody has an opportunity to purchase it. And it kind of loses that, trying to think of the word, like,
Appeal,
specialness to the property. Yeah, appeal. Yeah.
Sex appeal.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon
And
as
then
I say
when,
everybody else is going to have an opportunity at the deal, everybody's like, oh, that's gross. Get it away from me. Oh, the public's going to be able to see it. And it's like, well, wait, hold up. Just run your numbers and submit a cash offer, whether it's MLS or not. And one of the conversations I had with the wholesaler was, I was talking to him and he was like, I just ran into the same issue. He said, we had a property listed at 500. We negotiated it down to 375 and we immediately sold it for 450 after it was on the MLS. They sold it for 75 higher because they purchased it, negotiated the seller down, shopped it off market, and people wanted it just because it was an off market deal. So it's kind of how this topic got brought up.
and now fast forward to today, right? Eric is under contract. So you want to pull up the property
Yeah.
and tell
I
us
will share my screen.
what transpired since. And it's crazy, man, because one of those investors could have gotten this deal, right?
Yeah.
We
Yes.
want to talk about this because we don't want you to make the same mistake, right? So if you have investors that you are working with and Eric happened to call you the agent because he knows you work with a lot of investors and your investor says, oh, wait a minute, it's going to go on the MLS. I don't want to do it. You better convince them like, no, let's still submit an offer because you
Yeah.
just never know, man. So that's why we want to bring this up. And if you're an investor working with realtors and only think, and you only want to see off market stuff, then you're in the wrong too, because
Yeah.
listen to what happened. And this happens more often than you realize. Go ahead.
Yeah. And even just, I'll continue on this one, but I just had a conversation with an investor yesterday for a home that we listed on the MLS. And I asked him, he was already working with an agent. So I'm like, I don't want to step on toes. Like, just continue to work with them and let me know if you need anything. And he's like, oh, like this dude's annoying me. He's just sending me stuff on market. And I'm like, did the numbers pencil out? He's like, yeah, I mean, they're good numbers. I'm like, who cares? Like, why? Like, so just kind of a sidebar. But yeah, so we said this to investors. None of them wanted to offer. Every single one of them was like, if you list on the market and you decide to pull it off, let me know. So we listed it on the market on Friday. In total, over the weekend, we had multiple offers. I can't disclose price, but over ask. Every offer was over ask, and we had double digit offers. So this thing went like crazy. Like we had so many people through. I think we probably had, sorry, my dog's next to me. I think we probably had 30 people in total through the open house on Saturday and Sunday. And the offer that got accepted was an investor.
And let's mention, I know you can't talk numbers specifically right now because it hasn't closed, so we can maybe do an update next time. But the reality is they actually took an investor offer over an offer that was way above list price, but they chose an offer that was closer to list price, mainly because they didn't want to deal with the headache of a buyer with a mortgage, even though it was that much more money. And they wanted a clean, fast closing, and this one did no inspections, right?
Yep. So terms were just as important on this one. And we had out of the double digit offers, a lot of them were way up there. The one that we took was a pretty modest offer, but just was as clean as possible. No contingencies, no financing, heavy earnest money, and flexible on closing. So, and I told him he was actually the first offer. He was the first investor that came through. And he said, what are you guys looking for? I said, price is absolutely important, but so is terms. And there were agents that called after an offer was selected because we let everybody know. And they were just like, how did we not get it? We threw out these crazy numbers. And I'm like, I told everybody, like, we try to get what we can for the seller. So anybody that submits an offer, we always send out an email of what the seller's looking for, best terms. Obviously, price is important, but best terms. We repeated that, I think, like 30 different times. You'd be surprised at how many offers I got that were strong, financially, but the terms weren't that good. So it's like, that's not going to appeal. You can't throw a ton of money at somebody that's looking for best terms.
This is perfect because like when I had my acquisitions team in San Diego, the one of the things, part of the script we always worked in was asking the listing agent, because we would close deals off the MLS like every week, right? That was our deal. That's how we got deals. And part of the script was Mr. Agent, outside of price, what does the best offer look like to your client?
Yeah.
Right? So we leave the
Yep.
price out and we get to the bottom. And then I usually would like my guys, my acquisitions team, to even give examples. Like, let the agent start thinking, because they might be so busy, they might not even think of, what they talked about with the seller, right? So we would give examples like, does the seller need to stay in a house after closing? Does the seller need maybe $10,000 released first before closing? Or what is it? Do they want to leave everything behind? And if they said they would love an offer that has absolutely no contingencies, right? Then guess what we would do? We would then ask the agent, like, hey, can we have a day where we can go quickly take a look at it and make sure we can absolutely submit an offer with no contingencies? And if they gave us that opportunity, in most cases they would, and I don't see why Eric wouldn't, right? If they asked you that.
Yeah.
Then we would go and make sure we try to do our best to submit an offer with no contingencies, because we know most investors are not going to ask that question, and they're going to submit an offer that will have an inspection contingency. Now, I will never tell my investor clients to submit an offer with no contingency for an inspection unless they did their inspection prior to submitting the offer, right?
Yep.
So if the listing agent tells me, look, man, you know what's most important to my client is no contingencies, they want to get this thing closed in 7 days, then that's what I will do with my client. If I'm representing the investor, or if I am the investor, which I was many times in San Diego, we would do the inspection quickly, get out there, take a look, boom, submit an offer. And in most cases, then we would beat out offers that were substantially higher than our offer because of that. And it's exactly what happened here. Literally exact what happened. And to add to this now, it's crazy because Eric is talking to this investor that's going to close on his property. Knock on wood, it's going to close, I'm sure, because
it will.
In his deposit, how much was the deposit? It went hard, right? So
it was a heavy deposit, which got deposited first day. And he's already given me like the thumbs up. Like, he's like, hey, it's hard money. He told me up front, he's like, it's hard money, but it's cash. He had 3 of them. I talked to the hard money lender. They looked at the deal beforehand. They're like, yeah, like, we'll have no problem on that. So yeah, and to what you were going after this, what's going to end up happening is he's going to close on this and either probably decide to renovate it, or I told him, I said, if you really want, I don't care. I can give you the other people that offered and you can go back to them. And if you want to try and sell it to them, you're more than welcome. So that's something that he might just be able to turn it and sell it. I don't know what his like plans or his intentions are. I know he's already got some stuff that he's got planned to order on it, but he at least has that ability. And it was something where I knew me and Randy ran the numbers last Thursday because this was kind of fresh. We were talking about it. I'm like, dude, I'm either losing my mind and I have no clue what I'm doing, because like none of these investors want to offer on it because it's going on the market, or these people are being stubborn. So we ran the comps and we looked at it and we're like, no, we're very solid, like 480, conservatively. So the only thing that makes sense is just somebody it's almost like an ego thing where you can't let your ego get in the way. Just because it's on market, just because other people can see it, you never know what's going to happen offer wise. You never know if your offer is going to beat out somebody else's just because a seller is looking for specific terms. So that's what ended up playing out on this one.
And this investor, if I remember correctly, asked you, hey, Eric, would you be interested in representing them, right? Yeah.
And I told him, like, with this situation, most of the time I'll just tell him, like, hey, take that buyer commission, because he was an agent himself. He said, you're more than welcome to represent me and keep the commission. And I told him just to keep the commission and throw it on the purchase price, throw it on the offer. So that was one of those situations where, like, most agents, though, if he did that, I'm sure they would have been like, oh, absolutely. And they would have pushed for it at like 100%. And on this one, we can disclose, like, we represented multiple buyers on this one. So, and every single one of them, we waived the commission and just threw it on top of the offer, just so that it wouldn't, be a conflict of interest with any of them.
Yeah. And anyway, I can't stress enough how that this can happen more often than I think a lot of investors realize. So I wanted to talk about this one in particular because it's just wild to me that he literally got investors telling him, no, I don't want to look at it because it's going to go on MLS. It's like, And then here's this dude that just gets it, and he's gonna get a slamming deal.
Yep.
And he's gonna be able to have an opportunity to wholesale it if he wants to, or, you know, in this case, a double closing, because Eric is gonna be turn around and be like, here's a few buyers I got for you already. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, and I mean, it's not prone to just like Tampa. We had the same thing in Cincinnati often. And the guy that I worked with for a really long time, we loved on market deals because it's overlooked. Like a lot of people, a lot of retail buyers don't want a home like this. That's got we did have some retail offers, but like, you know, this had some chipped paint and some baseboard. Kitchen could use a little updated, but nothing major. It was like fresh coat of paint, maybe some baseboards. The bathrooms are honestly updated, and it needed a new roof. So that turns off a lot of retail buyers, and also a lot of investors are probably looking at this thinking like, you know, needs a little bit of work, but it's on the MLS. I don't want to look at it. These were the kind of like things we would look for all the time because
yeah,
this is a small amount of work. It's a easy flip. I know the area, and I knew it was going to kind of go fast just with like the ideal portion, and it's overlooked because people don't want to. They just assume if it's on the MLS, it's at retail, but that's just not the case a lot of times. And even if it is at retail and it needs work, negotiate it down. You never know what a seller is going to say.
yep, yeah. So true, man. It's crazy. And I have a particular thing that just happened like a few weeks ago. We closed on this deal for a repeat client of ours. So this is actually, you know, same thing. Like I represented a seller that had a property that needed a ton of work. I did an open house for investors. This buyer comes through, wanted to live in it, and had the cash though. He was a cash buyer, wanted to live in a property. I represented him. He ended up buying the property, renovated it. And anyway, a few years goes by. He's got a beautiful renovated home, free and clear. We helped him pull out $500,000 on it. This is in San Diego. And he's like, all right, we're ready to buy another one. So we helped him locate a different one. And he went after this amazing property that amazing. I mean, it was a dump, but to him, it was amazing, right? It was a small little home that was a complete dump, probate deal. And we submitted an offer, got beat out. They were devastated, right? But what do? I keep following up with the listing agent, right? Boom. Next week, he tells me first offer fell out. I'm like, oh, great. We have an opportunity. So our client went up in price, lost it again. We're like, bummer. Client, you know, bumped again. Keep following up with listing agent. Second offer falls out of escrow again. At that point, we resubmit our offer at the same price, lose it again for the third time. Kid you not. Keep following up with the listing agent. And I think at that point, he actually he beat me with the follow-up on the fourth time and said, Randy, is your buyer still interested? I'm like, tell me more. He's like, another escrow fell out. I'm like, I'm telling you, man, I was like, I told you from the beginning, my client is an end user. He knows construction. He's got a construction company. He's paying cash, but he's going to live in it. He's not an investor. I told you this from the beginning. My buyer is solid. He's going to close on this thing. And I'm like, I'm glad you came back. And we put the deal together and we closed on it. Fourth escrow, guys. Fourth escrow. Most investors would completely, or not even investors, agents that represent investors too, would completely forget about that property because we got it months later. Like this was like probably a month and a half later after they went through the painful fourth escrows. Then we actually ended up getting it. Like this is how we literally picked up hundreds of properties in San Diego because we kept following up because I know a lot of escrows fall out. There's a lot of shiesty investors that submit crazy offers. Then they try to get a crazy price reduction and then the seller declines it. And then they get frustrated and then they sell it to the, you know, to a client like us who would submit an offer with no inspection contingency, close in 7 days. And they're like, we just want to get this thing over with, right?
Yep.
It happens so often, right? So, and who knows, like with this one, I'm sure, Eric, you know, you're going to close on it. with this guy, but you never know. Things could happen, you know, and the right
Yeah.
thing for the investors that submitted an offer on this property to, you know, follow up with Eric. And I'm wondering, since this went under contract, how many of, let's say, I don't know how many offers you got, how many actually followed up with you already?
I would say, yeah. So we typically, like when we select an offer, we have a spreadsheet. I go through and call every agent. And I try to let them know kind of statistics with like where the offers came in, kind of like percentage wise, just to give them an idea on like how to frame their like offers forward. We did have like one or two that were actually open to backup offers. Um, with this one, we kind of discussed with the seller and just said, look, we have enough offers. Every person I talked to was open to a backup offer. And we had multiple other offers that were very strong that we were like, we'll see what happens. If for whatever reason this one did fall out, before we'd go back, we would reach out to every agent that submitted before, say, hey, send your highest and best. We'll be making a decision this evening to try and have highest and best. Maybe other offers come in different. Just let them know like terms will win out. On this one. So we try to, Randy, I know you do the same thing, but like we have a seller spreadsheet and we try to present the offers without having any emotion or any, like the only thing we'll do is like notes on, was the offer clean? How was communication with the agent? How was communication with the loan officer? Everything else I try and take myself out of. And I let my seller make their decision and they can ask questions when it pertains to, you know, what does this mean with the offer? Or does this one actually, is it no contingency? But other than that, we're out of it.
yeah.
And we want them to make the best decision. And to be honest, when I was presenting these offers, I didn't think the one that we went with was going to be the one they were going to go with. There was a couple that I thought they would say, let's risk it and take this. And that just wasn't the case. And you'd be surprised at how many times I've presented offers and I'm like, they're for sure going with like offer 2. And then they're like, offer 4. And it's like, whoa, like did not expect that. Like, what is it? And it could be anything. You'd be super surprised. And kind of in the same regard, Rain, I know we had talked about this before, but we bought a property in Cincinnati a couple of years ago that was on the MLS. It was being sold by American Homes for Rent, and it was listed as major foundational issues. And I'm like, it had been on for 400 days, which in Cincinnati is like actually absurd. I'm like, there's something going on with this. So we set up a showing and we walked it. No foundational issues. Home was completely sound. The basement had moisture in it because the sump pump, the battery backup stopped working and the power had switched off. So there was moisture in the basement. Nobody was there. And a battery backup had caused there to be like maybe 2 inches of water sitting there. So everybody that saw it would turn on the light, see water in the basement or signs of water, and immediately walk out thinking this foundation shock. It was listed as a bad foundation. We bought it for $165. We replaced the sump pump. They did mold mitigation and then relisted it at $225. We went through like 3 different offers on it and ended up selling it for like $235. And in total, it was a 2-week process. Like from the time that he purchased it to getting the sump pump to not the closing, but accepting that final and like last 4th offer.
Amazing.
And that's
man.
MLS listed. So we have those indicators where like this has been on for a while. What's going on? And that one stuck out. That one was originally listed at 225 and we offered 165. But when it's MLS listed, I'm looking for stuff that's high on days on market. Like I love it. I know there's movement there.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to kind of maybe even open it up. Has anyone had similar experiences with investors where they have that same stigma because of MLS properties? Has anyone experienced that?
Yeah, I've I work out here in Los Angeles County and we 100% experience that. So, we do fix and flips, done about 40 in the last 36 months, and we also do wholesales.
Nice.
Comes to wholesale deals, if it's on the MLS and we put it under contract, trying to get an investor to buy it is like pulling teeth, even when the numbers totally make sense. We were just dealing with one the other day, same thing. Once they find out it's on the market, they have no interest. So yeah, we definitely deal with that. On the wholesale side of things, it kind of hurts things a bit if it's on the market. But like you're saying, if it's one that we intend to keep and do on our own, we've realized that it is beneficial to still go after those deals.
Yeah.
So wild. Like, so why do you think, Anthony, what's your take? Why do you think the investor, even the numbers make sense, why would they say no? What's your thought? Like, what do you think?
From what I gather, and this is the only way I can kind of explain it, is once if they know it's going on the market or it's on the market, it's lost a little bit of its allure to them. They feel like,
Mhm.
okay, either they're not, even though they see the numbers, they may not, they may feel some kind of way like, oh, it's on the market, so it's easier to get. It's kind of like anything in life. If something seems easier to obtain, people lose their sense of value for it. I think that may be what's happening.
I agree. Yeah. I think it's,
And I wonder, do you think some of them think like, oh, it's gonna be harder to sell it on the back end because now we're gonna have the history of the property being on the MLS, which I think that's absurd, but I wonder if that even is a thought.
A good question. And I don't, I really don't know. I mean, that I've never really thought about. I guess, yeah, when it is on the market, then yeah, if someone checks the history, they can see what it was initially acquired for. So I guess that could go into some of the logic, but it really doesn't seem to be that, at least when you're speaking to the investors directly. It just really seems to be a stigma that they have about properties that are on the market. If it's on the market, they just seem to lose interest. Sometimes you try to go over the numbers with them in the comps and they really don't want to hear anything else after that.
yeah. I think it's just because when there's access to all of that, they don't feel like they're getting anything, again, special. Like everybody has access to that deal now. Whereas if it's off market or if it's being shopped, they feel like there's something to it. They feel like they kind of had something to do with it. And
Like,
we had,
oh, go ahead,
okay.
Eric. No, you go.
I was gonna say, well, we had one in Temple Terrace that's an Airbnb around here, and before we list it, we'll do like because in our contracts we can start marketing like a day before, so we do like a group blast out to like I don't know thousands of Facebook groups. Like we'll just join out of state Facebook groups and everything. We blast this property out, and I would say me and Katie I probably had about 30 phone calls, just like we're so interested in this, let us know. As soon as we listed it, crickets, nobody responded. I had two people that were like, that's the exact area I invest. I love it. I love the numbers. We had everything with it. They're like, we're in. As soon as we listed it, ghost. Have not heard anything. So it happens even just every property. As soon as it gets listed, it just loses some of that appeal.
Yeah, it's wild, man, because we love those. We
Yeah.
built our whole business, 95% of our deals when I was there at CT Homes for 7 years literally came from MLS and realtors. Like, so,
Yeah.
I guess it's good if those investors don't want to go after them, they left them for us. So thank you.
Hey,
I was
hey,
gonna say, I
Randy.
think it's go ahead.
Hey,
Sorry.
who will share?
It's
Oh,
Jana.
hi, it's Jan. I was gonna say I've experienced the same thing in Ventura County and LA County. What I think the reason, and one wholesaler told me the reason why he was not interested in a property that I was selling was because the minute it goes onto the MLS, there's visibility to all the history, and they didn't want that shared. And their whole marketing model was that they do off-market properties, so it didn't fit their business model of being able to brag about having only off-market properties. And
Yep.
there's a stigma because people on the buy side, some of the investors I've worked with, feel that as soon as it goes on the MLS, because the competition's going to be there, they just assume that it's going to be a waste of their time and that it's going to go for a lot more than they want to pay. They just assume that that's going to happen once it hits the MLS.
Yeah.
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 Wholesalers kind of make sense because I talked to one of them and it's like when it's public knowledge for that. So you list a property like that St. Pete one at 360, if they lock it up at 360 and they're shopping it for 380, 390, and it does happen. But as soon as they start shopping it, like I've done it too, to be honest with you, where a wholesaler will send me a deal and I'll go pull it up to run comps in the MLS.
Right.
I'm like, this thing's listed for like 360 and they're shopping it for 450. What's going on here? So there is some of that I think gives it a bad appeal. Because like a lot of times when I receive those deals, they're terrible numbers. Like it's just a wholesaler who has no clue what they're doing. They went to the agent, they locked it up. Now they're trying to shop it. There was no spread in between anyways. And I get hit with those all the time. And it's like, okay, this is dumb.
Right.
So I guess I can kind of understand a little bit from the wholesaler's point, just because there's kind of an anchor to the price at that point.
Yeah, but then if the numbers work though,
That's the thing. If numbers work, I still run it. I run it every time, but then I open it up and I'm like, oh goodness gracious. Like, this was listed. It was on for 2 days. We're 50, they're shopping it for 50K over or whatever it is. Like, I'll still run it, but we get a lot of wholesalers down here that'll lock it up. Like this St. P house, for example, I have it at 360. Well, we'll see down here as a wholesaler will lock it up for 415 and then start shopping it at like 445. And it's like there's no spread on the deal. And it's like, what a waste. And a lot of sellers don't know the difference. So they'll accept a contract that will allow for assignability. And then they're expecting like, oh, it's a 21-day close. And we have so many contingencies in our contract, you get towards the end and the investor can't buy anybody. They're like, well, sorry, I can't close, insurance contingency, it was too expensive. And they move on their way. So we definitely see that as well. But I still run all the numbers with them.
I wanted to share a quick story about a seller that I had in Los Angeles. And it was a probate, or it wasn't a probate, it was a death in the family. And they wanted to sell the house quickly and just be done with it. So to Eric's point earlier about terms, it's not always about the price. I ran the comps. It was like repeat business. It was a client's parents. Okay. And I ran comps and I told them, oh, look, you guys, I know you want to sell fast. I can put it out to investors and I can sell it for you fast, but you need to know that the offers are going to be low. If they come in fast with cash, it's going to be a low offer. I ran comps and I said, I think you guys can get way more, even in the current condition, without even touching the place. And they would not listen. They had a number in their head, from one of the neighbors that had sold. And they said, no, we don't think we can get more than that. We don't want to prolong this. Jen, just sell it. And I said, well, I brought the offers forward and I said, I really think you guys can get more than this. And this is a wholesaler. I was honest with them. I said, the guy who is buying is a wholesaler and he's going to turn around and sell it, for more. And that's exactly what he did. We saw the numbers, and to my surprise, the sellers were so grateful for not having to deal with doing any work, having no inspection, no contingencies. They didn't even care. And they said, wow, Jan, you were right. I mean, they watched the wholesaler turn around and sell it for more money, and they weren't mad at me because I told them that was going to happen, but they just couldn't get in their minds over the hurdle of wanting a deal with no contingencies and no inspection. And so there's a lot of truth, Eric, to what you said about with those sellers, terms are way more important than money.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotions tied into like listing a property for people, whether it's, emotions attached to the property or the stress that goes to it. Like, and just even for this seller alone, I told her multiple times, you're going to get way more than what we're listing it for. I told her, I said, expect this to be crazy. And I mean, last week, she was panicking. She was like, what do we do if we don't have an offer? And I told her, I'm like, I could be wrong and I don't want to be, but I was like, if we're sitting here next week with no offer, like I suck. Like, and I said that multiple times. And the first day when we got the first offer, you could just tell like she was 10 times more relaxed, like much more easygoing, much more relaxed conversation. And that's just what it takes sometimes. It just takes that, like, okay, this is going to sell, because people will start to go down their own little rabbit hole of, what if it doesn't sell? What if I'm stuck holding it? What if, it's 2008, the market crashes? What if I can't do anything with this? Like, people start to freak out. So you have to kind of try and walk them through it. But sometimes you can't really be reasoned for it. You just have to do what they ask.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to answer Tamara. So I was trying to look for the link. I can't find it when I did the quick Google search, but I know it's a fact. I saw it about the Veterans Administration talking about it. So I just couldn't find it real quick now. And then Pablo, Express Offers is a iBuyer program. So it's a cash buyer program through eXp Realty that most big brokerages have. Basically, if you get a listing, like in this case, Eric has, he was able to submit it through the Express Offers portal. And then they have partnered with different investors in different cities. Recently, they partnered with Open Door. Before Open Door, they had many different investors they partnered with across the country. And then they would get a notification of Eric's listing, and then that company would submit a cash offer on that listing. So That's what we have access to. Many brokerages have that. So if you're part of another brokerage, look into that. See if your company has it, right? Because it's just an easy way to get additional offers on a table that you can either, your client can entertain or leverage to negotiate, right?
Yeah. And we received that express offer when me and Randy were talking last week about this, and it was like, okay, like the offer that came in was like, we're good, the seller's good. I immediately sent it over to him. I'm like literally no stress. And it's open door with EXP, and then there's local investors. You can get correct me if I'm wrong, Randy, but local investors can get approved too, but you have to have a certain amount of deals you've done. You have to go through like an interview process, and then there's like, you have to be accredited, and if anything happens, they'll kick you out of it. Like if you don't stick to your word with it.
That's right. Now, if you do go with the national iBuyers, aka cash buyers, then just know that they have a ton of fees. So when you see that large number, like keep reading, because that large number dwindles down by 20,000 very fast as a net to the seller. So just keep reading through everything in detail, because they get you when they, a client can see the large number on the front end, the gross, and then next thing you know, it's like, wait, what happened to 30 grand? They have a lot of fees built into it.